Flash from Dallas. Two priests who were with President Kennedy say he is dead.
On November the 22nd, 1963, at 12:30, the whole system of the American form of government collapsed when John Kennedy was assassinated.
There apparently is word that this AP flash, this report from the two priests, that the president has died of bullet wounds, is confirmed.
If you can show a fourth bullet, then Lee Harvey Oswald did not do it alone.
Oswald was pulled screaming and shouting from the Texas Theater by officers who had gone there on a tip that Oswald was there.
If Lee Harvey Oswald did not do it alone, or did not kill the President of the United States, then there was a conspiracy to kill the President of the United States.
Here comes Oswald down the hall again.
Did you buy that rifle? Just as fast as you people have been given, but I emphatically deny these charges.
Look at who benefited by his death, and then one can reach a reasonable conclusion as to who might have been part of his assassination.
Are you and the rest of the police convinced you are the right man now? I think we do. Are there any other suspects linked with Oswald? No.
The FBI, the CIA, the Mafia, the Cuban connections, the pro-Cuban, all of these were active secretly. But they all benefited by his death. The war in Vietnam continued on for another 11 years.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
I'm Paul Wright to continue our investigation into the tragic and fascinating story of the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. In our last programme we heard celebrated JFK assassination expert Vincent Lavery explain how shortly after JFK's untimely death on November 22nd, 1963, the US government established the Warren Commission to investigate the President's murder. So what findings did the Commission reach? Vincent Lavery explains.
The Commission had much controversy within its ranks as to how to word its findings. And the findings were that Lee Harvey Oswald had killed the President of the United States, that he used one gun, a Mannlicher Carcano Italian-made 1940 model rifle, purchased from Klein's Sporting Goods Store in Chicago, Illinois, and the weapon was mailed to A.J. Heidel, P.O. Box 2915, Dallas, Texas, and the cost of the weapon, including the telescopic sight and postage, was $21.45. So this very specific gun, as outlined, as I stated, fired 3 bullets from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building, and that one man was responsible for the assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald. Using one gun, fired 3 bullets from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building, case closed. So that was the government's findings. I got involved in the event of the assassination in 1965. A friend of mine, I was living in California, in Merced, California, and a friend of mine, whose mother owned a restaurant there, called me one day and invited me to lunch and said, I want to talk to you about the Kennedy assassination. So I went down and joined him at lunch, and he had just started at Berkeley University, And I remember him telling me all sorts of facts and figures about how the Warren Report was faulty and how the real story hadn't been told. I remember thinking to myself, give a young fellow 1 year in Berkeley University and they'll start going off the deep end on every issue. But he said, if you don't want to believe what I'm telling you, at least read the Warren Report Commission. And I assured him I would. I recommend to anyone who is interested today listening to this program that if they are interested in it and they want to take an intellectual approach to the assassination rather than a kind of a gut feel-good approach, that they read the Warren Report Commission first before they read anything else. There are now over 83 books written on the assassination. Some of them, by any figment of the imagination, are not worth the paper they're printed on, but there are several books stating both sides of the issue that one should look at, and probably Mark Lane's Rush to Judgment is the first book I would recommend after you read the Warren Report Commission.
Unfortunately, I was probably 15 to 20 feet away from the president when it happened.
Tell us exactly what you saw, sir.
He was coming down the street, and my 5-year-old boy and myself were by ourselves on the grass there on Palmer Street, and I asked Joe to wave to him, and Joe waved, and I waved, and the man...
That's all right, sir.
You
go ahead and tell me.
As he was waving back, he was the shot rang out, and he slumped down in the seat, and his wife reached up toward him, and as he was slumping down, and the second shot went off, and it just knocked him down in the seat.
Two shots?
Two shots.
Did you see the man who did this?
No, sir, I did not see the man who did it. All I did was look in the man's face when he was shot there and saw that expression on his face and grabbed himself and slide.
The issue of the Kennedy assassination revolves around the 3 bullets. The Mannlicher rifle, it takes 2.3 seconds to lock and load. The Mannlicher rifle specifically was kind of a joke during World War II because of its inaccuracy. It was known to be a very inaccurate rifle. The rifle that was eventually found on the 6th floor had a telescopic sight on it that was inaccurate. The hairlines on the rifle were not lined correctly, and everyone who knows about weapons knows that the Mannlicher is a particularly inaccurate rifle.
So, Vincent, just before we continue, who has confirmed this? I mean, where is the evidence that the telescope was not in alignment with the actual gun barrel itself?
The Warren Report Commission.
Right, so this is official. This is no new news.
No, everything I say in the talk, as I told you before the interview, I give a 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour, and 8 hour talk on this subject, and everything I give up to about 2 hours is what the government said happened. There may be occasions where I do insert my own opinion, but if I do, I make clear that this is my opinion. So everything I've stated and everything I will state is what the government said happened. So one has to look at what these 3 bullets did.
What is your name, ma'am?
Jean Hill.
From Dallas?
That's right.
And did you see the shooting, miss?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe what happened?
Yes, sir.
Will you do that now?
They were driving along, and we were the only people in this area on our side, and the shots came from directly across the street from us. And just as the president's car became directly even with us, we took one look at him, and he was sitting there. He and Jackie were looking at a dog that was in the middle of the seat, and about that time 2 shots rang out just as he looked up. Just as the president looked up, and these 2 shots rang out, and he grabbed his chest, and it looked like he was in pain, and he fell over in the seat, and Jackie fell over on him and said, "My God, he's been shot." And after that, more shots rang out, and the car sped away.
Now, what kind of car was that?
what kind of a car was it. The president...
I mean, where did the shots come from?
The shots came from the hill.
From the hill?
Yes. It was just east of the underpass.
According to the government of the United States, the first bullet hit John Kennedy 5.5 inches below the hairline, pretty much dead center on the spinal cord. It exited, it being the first bullet, exited below the Adam's apple, and it nicked the thigh as it passed through it. It created a hole in the thigh. It continued on into Governor Connolly, who was sitting in front of him, and went through his rear right rib cage. It shattered his fifth rib. It went through his right wrist, exited, and wound up in Governor Connolly's left thigh. So this is the famous Exhibit 399 bullet, which later on has become known as the magic bullet. The second bullet, which cannot be accounted for, it missed everybody, and it possibly ricocheted off the road about 50 yards ahead. But it's unknown as to what happened to the second bullet. And the third bullet, as I said earlier, hit John Kennedy clear on the right rear of the head, and literally broke into 36 to 38 pieces and blew away about a quarter of his brain. What happens next is at the hospital, where an orderly is taking the two stretchers from the operating rooms, trauma room 1 and trauma room 2, and as he's pushing the gurney down the hallway, he hears a clink sound, and he looks down, and there is a perfect slug which has fallen off one of the stretchers. It's Exhibit 399. It's in what people who study bullets describe as pristine condition. It is less than 0.03 of a grain from the bullet missing. The orderly is asked, which stretcher did it fall off? The orderly's response is, to the best of my recollection, it fell off Kennedy's. Why do you think it fell off Kennedy's? Well, because I remember thinking there was more blood on Kennedy's pillow than Connolly's. But of course, for the government's case to be correct, it had to have fallen off Connolly's, because it can't be the third bullet. It broke into so many pieces within John Kennedy's head, and it can't be the second bullet because that's unaccounted for. Therefore, it's got to be the first bullet that went through both men and lodged in Connolly's left thigh. The government said no, of course the orderly is mistaken. It had to have fallen off Connolly's stretcher.
The President's car is now turning onto Elm Street, and it will be only a matter of minutes before he arrives at the trademark. I was on Simmons Freeway earlier, and even the freeway was jam-packed with spectators waiting their chance to see the President as he made his way towards the trademark. It appears as though something has happened in the motorcade route. Something, I repeat, has happened in the motorcade route. There's numerous people running up the hill alongside Elm Street.
Here you have three bullets. One bullet now known as the super bullet, entering and exiting, crashing through bones of two strong-built men, and they're 6 feet and taller, and comes out in pristine condition. The government is asked to account for how such a bullet could make such a flight, and its response in the Warren Report is that bullets do funny things while in flight. The people who are involved in the automobile are asked in the Warren Report what they remember. Jackie Kennedy's response is she doesn't remember any bullets, any sounds, any shots being fired. The two Secret Service agents, Greer and Kellerman, one said, I heard at least 4 shots. The other one said, I heard a rally of shots, meaning like a machine gun, or like an automatic. Governor Connolly, a member of the Warren Report, asked Governor Connolly, in your view, which bullet caused the injury to your chest, Governor Connolly? And Governor Connolly responds with the second one. Question, and what is your reason for that conclusion, sir? And Governor Connolly responds, well, in my judgment, it just couldn't conceivably have been the first bullet because I heard the sound of the shot. In the first place, I don't know anything about the velocity of this particular bullet, but any rifle has a velocity that exceeds the speed of sound. In other words, what Governor Connolly was saying was he would have felt it first before he would have heard it. The fact that he heard it, it meant that it hadn't hit him. And when I heard the sound of that first shot, that bullet had already reached where I was, or it had reached that far, and after I heard that shot, I had the time to turn to my right and start to turn to my left before I felt anything. Mrs. Connolly was asked the same question, and she agreed with her husband that he was hit by the second bullet. Well, of course, the problem with that is that it wasn't, in order to fire the second shot from the bullet, from the Manticore rifle, it would take a minimum of 2.3 seconds, and that would be an expert firing and locking and loading. Connolly shows pain approximately 1.7 seconds later, therefore it can't be the second bullet, because as I said, it takes 2.3 seconds to lock and load and to aim and fire. Therefore, the government has to account for this time lapse in which Connolly registers pain. If you look at the Abraham Zapruder movie, over a second after Kennedy's hands are going to his throat, it clearly shows Connolly's cheeks flying out, his white mop of hair flying up, and his right arm making a violent twist, which would indicate a second bullet, but not under no circumstances could it be from the Manticore rifle, for obvious reasons. It takes 2.3 seconds to lock and load. But the government says no. Connolly had what the government describes as a slow reaction, and that he obviously had to be hit by the first bullet. In other words, if Connolly is hit by a third bullet, then Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill the President of the United States alone, or Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill the President of the United States at all. The government can't have it both ways. So the government has to say 3 bullets were fired, the first bullet went through both men, the second bullet missed everybody, and the third bullet hit John Kennedy and blew away a quarter of his brain.
Here comes Oswald down the hall again. You buy that rifle? That's as fast as you people have been given, but I emphatically deny these charges. Oswald has hustled through a doorway.
That is the essence of people who find fault with the government's report.
Because in other words, it was basically, I mean, from what Connolly was saying, from what you were inferring here, from reading that extract from the book Rush to Judgment and from the Warren Report, which is taken originally from the Warren Report, is that Connolly basically was saying that there was more than 3 bullets. There had to be more than 3 bullets. He heard the velocity of the original, at least the first bullet, if not the second bullet, and it would have been the third or the fourth bullet which hit him, at least.
Well, exactly. It cannot be the second bullet because no one questions the latest time span for Connolly to be hit. The latest time span from Kennedy being hit is less than 2 seconds, is 1.7 seconds. Therefore, it takes 2.3 seconds to lock and load. Therefore, it cannot be the second bullet, nor can it have come at that second from the Manelker-Carcano rifle, which the government claims was fired from the 6th floor of the Texas Book Depository building. A little bit of a background on Lee Harvey Oswald. His father died 2 months before he was born. He was born in 1939, October the 18th, 1939. He moved to New York with his mother and his brother and half-brother when he was 10. And he was a troublesome youngster, not of major criminal type, but he ditched school and what have you, and was put in a youth home for a while. The family comes back to Dallas, and then they move back to New Orleans, where at the age of 17 he joins the Marine Corps. His mother signed the papers fraudulently in order to get him into the Marines. He is twice on the firing range while in the Marine Corps, and each time his record indicates he is just barely qualifies. In other words, he's not a marksman, he's not an expert. He meets the basic requirements to qualify as a marksman. He gets an early discharge from the Marine Corps and come in order to support his mother, and comes back to New Orleans, where he joins up with a pro-Cuban group.
This would have been a pro-Castro Cuban group, Vincent, not an anti-Castro group.
Oh, absolutely. He was, by this time, according to himself, a communist. He had read many books and had reached the state of mind where he detested capitalism and American imperialism, etc., etc. While in New Orleans, he hands out pro-Castro, pro-Cuba literature, and gets in a fight with anti-Castro people, and is interviewed on a television talk show in which he will not answer the question as to whether he's a communist or not, but he indicates the ills of capitalism, etc.
Well, sir, I'm not a communist, and I think that the red herring and so forth is rather ridiculous to toss into this conversation.
And are you a Marxist?
Well, I have studied Marxist philosophy, yes, sir, and also other philosophers.
But are you a Marxist? I think you did admit on an earlier radio interview that you consider yourself a Marxist.
Well, I would very definitely say that I am a Marxist. That is correct. But that does not mean, however, that I'm a communist.
What is the difference between the two?
Well, there's a great deal of difference. Several American parties in several countries are based on Marxism, such as Ghana.
He moves to Russia. You must remember now, this is the late 50s. The McCarthy era is at its peak. He moves to Russia and enters into the immigration office in Moscow. And he tells the representative that he wants to denounce his American citizenship and become a Russian. The Russians tell him, no, we won't let you become a Russian citizen, but we will allow you to stay in the country and we'll get you a job working at a radio factory in Minsk. As a result of this, he attempts suicide, but recovers. He attempts suicide by slitting his wrist, but he recovers, and he moves to Minsk, where he marries a Russian lady by the name of Marina Prushakova. While in Russia, he gets disenchanted with communism and Russia, and the State Department lends him $430+ to come back to the United States.
This is actually the United States Department lends him the money to come back. This is a troublemaker that they're asking back. Wow, this is okay. Continue, Vincent, because you have me. My curiosity is certainly pricked here now.
And one must remember, of course, as I said, it's the McCarthy era, where there's McCarthy era, as you'll recall, was where Senator Joe McCarthy was going around the country saying there was communists in the military and communists in the university and communists in the State Department and communists in the media and communists in Hollywood, and people's lives and reputations were ruined. So it was the peak of the McCarthy era, and here the State Department pays his way to come back. He comes back and he moves with his wife and his mother to Dallas, where he gets a job in October of 1963, working at the Tech School Book Depository building.
Which is a state institution, so in other words, he's in many ways a civil servant of the US government, or certainly of the Texas state government. So this is a guy who was a former communist, and he's now working for, certainly under the aegis of some governmental body anyway.
Absolutely. He's working for the school board of the state of Texas and the county of Dallas.
And to discover what occurs next in the tragic story of the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, then don't miss Vincent Lavery talking in the next number 3 programme in this 3-part series. Until then, from myself, Paul Wright, bye for now.
But so far he's given absolutely no sign of weakening under the questioning? No. Are you and the rest of the police convinced you are the right man now? I think we do. Are there any other suspects linked with Oswald? No. Fire that rifle.
I emphatically deny these charges. I emphatically deny these charges. I emphatically deny these charges.
It was a calculating man who slew the president of these United States today. He had to be. The shots that killed the president and severely wounded the governor of Texas came from a predetermined spot, a clear view of the motorcade as it passed.
These people have given me a hearing without legal representation or anything.
Did you shoot the president?
I didn't shoot anybody, no, sir. I didn't shoot anybody, no, sir.
There's a shot. Oswald has been shot. Oswald has been shot. A shot rang out. Mass confusion here. All the doors have been locked. Holy mackerel. A shot rang out as he was led into his car. The shot, there's a mass confusion there, rolling and fighting. As he was being let out, now he's being led back. He was thrown to the ground. The police have the entire area blocked off. Here are some police officials. Who was he?
Jack Ruby is the name.
Jack Ruby?
Ruby, Carousel Club.
He runs the Carousel Club?